Representative Wheatley, thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to be heard. I'd like to preface my comments by offering my admiration and respect for Dr. Capretto and the work that he has done at Gateway Rehabilitation. I'm a practicing criminal defense attorney, and I know that Gateway has kept a lot of my clients out of jail, not merely because they were referred to Gateway at the point of their probation officer's gun necessarily, but that they learned how to act in recovery and how to deal with the disease of addiction, whether it's opiate addiction or alcohol addiction. So Dr. Capretto, I'd like to thank you very much for the excellent work that you're doing here in Allegheny County. I would like to offer my sympathy and condolences to Mr. Owen. I too am a bereaved parent. I understand that that is a pain that stays with you every day, almost every minute of every day, and sir, I'm very sorry for your loss. I am here testifying to urge the passage of the Compassionate Use Act of 2009, House Bill 1393. I'm the Executive Director of Pittsburgh NORML, a chapter of the National Organization for the Reform of Marijuana Laws, and I'm on the Board of Directors for Pennsylvanians for Medical Marijuana. Professionally, I'm a criminal defense attorney practicing in both state and federal court. Prior to practicing criminal defense, I spent 6 years as a prosecutor with the Allegheny County District Attorney's Office. I'm stating the obvious when I say that marijuana is illegal in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, regardless of the purpose or intent of the person possessing or consuming it. While the penalties for mere possession can be relatively light, a misdemeanor conviction for even possession of a small amount of marijuana is a criminal conviction that will remain with the individual for the rest of his life. Even where the prosecution ultimately agrees to withdraw or reduce the criminal charge to a non-traffic summary citation, the individual has likely already incurred legal fees, attended criminal hearings, and paid summary fines. Though Pennsylvania's possession of a small amount law is one of the less serious offenses in the Pennsylvania Criminal Code, possession with intent to deliver is a felony with additional serious consequences. I'm not talking about the drug dealer facing a mandatory sentence for selling 2 pounds of marijuana. Rather, I'm talking about the medicinal marijuana users who turn to home cultivation thinking it better than entering the world of illegal narcotics trafficking. One such client of mine suffers from temporomandibular joint disease, TMJ. He suffers from severe chronic pain on a daily basis and is prescribed morphine, oxycodone, Valium, and lidocaine patches for migraine headaches. Yet despite this medication, he continues to suffer severe spasms and tremors in his face, rendering him unable to eat. He cultivated 24 marijuana plants in his residence and baked marijuana into cakes. He noticed an immediate decline in his facial spasms. He unfortunately suffered a seizure which brought emergency personnel, including law enforcement, to his residence. He now faces a 3-year mandatory minimum sentence for manufacturing over 20 marijuana plants. I'm certainly not suggesting that all growers are benevolent medicinal users, as I represent many legitimate drug dealers whose grow operations were discovered by law enforcement. However, I have met numerous law-abiding, hardworking people who have unwittingly subjected themselves to mandatory minimum sentences and felony convictions because they believed it better to try and grow marijuana at home instead of entering the world of drug dealers and drug trafficking. A felony narcotics conviction in Pennsylvania will deprive one of the right to vote, serve on a jury, and possess firearms. Any drug conviction, misdemeanor or felony, also brings with it the loss of one's operating privileges, and as Jack Cole testified, will subject a student to the loss of federal financial aid. For many people who must be able to drive in order to work, this collateral consequence of even a small amount of marijuana conviction can be especially devastating. Reflecting the risks of arrest and prosecution facing medicinal marijuana patients, registered nurse Ken Wolski, an executive director of the Coalition for Medical Marijuana in New Jersey, points out in his written testimony that I've submitted to this committee that in 2004, the American Nurses Association, ANA, adopted a position statement on providing patients safe access to marijuana and cannabis. The ANA recognized that marijuana has been used medicinally for centuries, that marijuana has been shown to be effective for a wide range of symptoms and conditions, and that patients should have safe access to therapeutic marijuana cannabis. The ANA supports legislation to remove criminal penalties, including arrest and imprisonment for bona fide patients of therapeutic marijuana cannabis. The ANA supports federal and state legislation to exclude marijuana and cannabis from classification as a Schedule I drug, a position that has recently been adopted by the American Medical Association and the American College of Physicians, referred to by Dr. Capretto. The ANA represents 2.7 million registered nurses in the United States. And as Mr. Wolski points out, registered nurses are the largest group of healthcare professionals in the nation, and we are, according to his testimony, the most trusted profession in the nation. An obvious and legitimate concern for this committee is whether passage of House Bill 1393 would increase the risks of illegal drug abuse. Any such increase would necessarily impact the medical community and the law enforcement community. A number of medical professionals have submitted written testimony and provided live testimony for this committee's consideration. I would like to take a couple of moments of your time to share some of their testimony that may address some of this committee's concerns of the risk of drug abuse. Edward Payne is the CEO and president of Sorrento Gardens Alcoholism and Drug Services Incorporated, an addictions treatment facility in Hazleton, Pennsylvania. Mr. Payne is a certified addictions counselor and faculty member at the University of Scranton. He is also on the staff of Hazleton General Hospital. In his December 2nd, 2009 testimony before this committee, Mr. Payne addressed the gateway drug myth. He said, "The gateway theory was found without merit in a report commissioned by the federal government. In 1999, the Institute of Medicine published an extensive research study on medical marijuana and medicine, assessing the science base. Their study was commissioned by the United States Office of National Drug Control Policy in 1997 in the wake of medical marijuana initiatives that had begun during the prior year. Weighing in on the gateway theory, they concluded there is no conclusive evidence that the drug effects of marijuana are causally linked to the subsequent abuse of other illicit drugs." Mr. Payne also testified about a 2000 study of certified addictions counselors he conducted in conjunction with the Pennsylvania Certification Board. Of the 69 professional substance abuse counselors who responded, 78% said that marijuana had legitimate medical use, and 62% said they did not believe medicinal marijuana would hinder drug prevention efforts. Dr. Leonard Kravitsky, who has also submitted written testimony, has worked as a physician in the field of addictions in the Philadelphia area since 2000. He is certified by the American Society of Addiction Medicine. He addressed the gateway drug myth in his testimony. He said, "I've worked for years with seriously drug-addicted patients in Philadelphia who have experience ranging from methadone maintenance therapy for opiate addicts to an inpatient detox rehab primarily for opiate, alcohol, and prescription drug dependencies. The only patients, and there were very, very few of those, with marijuana addictions were those referred by the justice system after someone on parole or probation was found positive for marijuana on a urine drug screen. Alcoholism does not start with using cannabis. Heroin addiction does not start with using cannabis. Gambling addiction, internet addiction, and a host of other behavioral addictions do not start with cannabis. There is a genetic predisposition to a particular addiction, and as one can hear often at Alcoholics Anonymous meetings, people describe how at the exposure to alcohol, it was as if the switch was thrown, and that immediate affection for alcohol revealed itself. But I'm yet to meet the first alcoholic who blames cannabis as a gateway to his alcohol addiction. If the gateway drug theory were true, we would all run a risk of becoming serious drug addicts as we are continuously exposed to mind-altering substances, of which alcohol, caffeine, and nicotine are examples." Mallory McFarland is a medical assistant and office manager at a substance abuse treatment program in northwestern Pennsylvania. Her program has 5 physicians with a patient load of 500. Ms. McFarland notes in her written testimony to this committee that she has never once encountered a cannabis addict. "I've never taken a patient history where anyone has ever said they were in withdrawal from cannabis. I've never had someone call to report they have overdosed from cannabis or threatened to overdose on cannabis. I have never had a patient shoot up cannabis." Ms. McFarland states that the overprescribing of opioid pain medication is overwhelming. Currently, 20% of our patients come in as heroin addicts. The remaining 80% are opioid drug addicts being prescribed medication. Several of the patients that we treat are addicted to heroin, became addicted because a doctor stopped prescribing pain medication. In conclusion, I urge you to consider the real criminal consequences facing those who treat with medicinal cannabis in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. Giving them the opportunity to come out of the shadow of illegality will not result in an increase in illegal drug abuse. It will save our fellow Pennsylvanians the stigma of our narcotics conviction, and it will save them from entering the black market of narcotics trafficking merely to seek a proven and safe treatment alternative. Accordingly, I urge you to fully support House Bill 1393. Thank you.
Before I begin, I just want to say thank you very much for seeing us here today. This has been an issue in the United States in general over a long period of time. Hundreds of thousands are affected by the war on drugs, whether it be for personal, recreational use or medicinal use, and we have to get a sense of that as a great nation. My name is Sergeant Matthew Wright. I'm here to share with you my recent experience in the U.S. Army. When I joined the Army nearly 6 years ago, it was with the ideal to support my government and its efforts in Operation Iraqi Freedom. And this is my own high school graduation commencement, because I volunteered for deployment to the Middle East. After spending nearly 15 months guarding checkpoints and participating in various, often dangerous military detail, I finally returned home. It was from that time until very recently that I found it difficult to eat or sleep. I even encountered difficulty sitting in traffic. According to the Army medical staff, these are all symptoms of post-traumatic stress syndrome, also called PTSD, a condition very common among our military service personnel who have served in capacities similar to my own. The Army provided me with medications that did nothing to alleviate my symptoms and compounded them with the problem side effects of upset stomach and severe headaches. These still continue today. For over 3 years, I struggled with ongoing weight loss and chronic sleeplessness. Tired and frustrated, I began my own research into homeopathic and other all-natural treatments. Fortunately, I met an expert herbalist who was quite familiar with my specific symptoms of PTSD. He explained to me that the active component of naturally grown marijuana is delta-9 tetrahydrocannabinol, also known as THC. That could offer THC that could offer safely relief where prescription pills had failed. I was surprised, more a bit skeptical of the advice to use cannabis as a valid treatment option. I've always been a respectable and upstanding citizen, proud and responsible American soldier, so it was difficult for me to even consider the use of marijuana, until I learned that the VA accepts medical marijuana as a treatment option in states that have legalized marijuana. Again, marijuana is accepted by the VA as a treatment option in states that have legalized it. That fact alone prompted me to follow the advice of the herbalist. I realized that I am no less important as a VA patient just because I live in Pennsylvania and not New Jersey. My symptoms are just as treatable in Pennsylvania